After we identify desired results and determine acceptable evidence, we're ready to plan instruction and learning experiences to support proficiency-based learning. Learners need formative assessment, where learners get to practice and get feedback, and we design these around language functions and the modes. So for example, in interpretive, we want learners to be exposed to and interpreting multiple texts. Remember, in all of this, we start out with something that's highly scaffolded, and we also use authentic resources. Authentic resources and texts are embedded with culture, and they are actually the things that learners will encounter in the real world when they're authentic. What do we mean by authentic? We mean that these are texts that are created by users of the language for use by users of the language and not for the purpose of learning a language. The authentic texts not only offer input and information, but they also offer a model for what the learners will be producing when they are using interpersonal and presentational communication. Remember, too, to include literal as well as inferential questions. So to be purposeful, learners could pull out of a text that they're reading, they could pull out the daily activities and categorize them. They could put them into categories of more harmful or less harmful for the environment. This really gives them a purpose then for doing the reading, as they're exploring the essential question, how do our daily activities impact the environment? Learners think more deeply and they have a purpose for reading. Interpretive is defined by ACTFL as comprehension and analysis, not translation. So we need to create experiences for learners to practice these skills. In interpersonal communication, learners are going to be interacting with each other in meaningful ways. Again, we want to scaffold heavily with the experiences at first and then pull the scaffolding away. So as an extension of the interpretive experience we just talked about, we could now ask learners to talk with each other to compare the lists that they made of things that were more or less harmful for the environment. And as learners communicate their own opinions, as they compare, they might agree or disagree with the categorizations. And we might even scaffold that agreement and disagreement to give them some ways to do that. In presentational, to continue with that same idea, we could give learners some presentational practice now. So they could take the things that they had on their joint list of things that were maybe more harmful for the environment, and they could recast them to show things that might be better for the environment. For example, they could change, I got a plastic bag. They could recast that to say, I used a reusable bag. Putting ideas together helps learners prepare for their eventual summative presentations or summative performances. Tying the interpretive, interpersonal, and presentational together supports learners in their communication with purpose as they explore the essential questions. And lastly, we also want to be sure that we are evaluating and giving feedback along the way, and also helping learners to self-assess their experiences in each mode. Measuring the learning and the learning experiences using the tools of acceptable evidence support learners reach the desired outcomes.